Hey, you guys, Mrs. Morell here with your recap of instruction for November 18th and 19th. I have to think because that was a really long time ago. We've had a week since then. I hope all of you had an awesome and amazing Thanksgiving and are healthy and safe and sound. Um, so just to kind of get things back in your brain, the week before the break was kind of wonky because we did pictures in our classes. So the main things that happened were we wrapped up Earth Science by taking our summative quiz, which most of you guys absolutely rocked. If you're not happy with your grades, see your science teacher for a reteach, retest. But then we kind of alternated days and also introduced the topic of ocean currents. So let's talk about that real quick. So we learned that the sun is the energy source pretty much that drives everything that happens on Earth, whether it's convection in the water or convection in the atmosphere. The sun provides the radiant energy for photosynthesis for plants, which are the foundation of the food chain and keep the oxygen cycle going. So the sun is kind of the jam. We wouldn't be here without it. So it is the ultimate thermal energy source on Earth. We talked about and demonstrated on a globe that warm ocean currents originate at the equator. The water and the air are warmer at the equator because the equator gets direct sunlight. And the further you move north and south of the equator, the less direct the light is and the cooler the air and the water are. So what happens is cold polar water will sink to the bottom and begin to move toward the equator. And at the same time, that warm water at the equator that's heated up by that direct sunlight begins to become less dense and rise and go away from the equator toward the poles. So you have cold originating at the poles moving toward the equator, and warm originating at the equator and moving toward the poles. And the indirect heating of the earth is why this happens. So the earth is round, and so sun hits it, and it hits it directly at the equator, but very indirectly at the poles, which accounts for the difference in temperatures. We talked about convection and how it transfers heat through the oceans and causes the ocean currents. There are two kinds of currents. There are surface currents and deep ocean currents. And surface currents are pretty much driven by convection in the atmosphere and winds, and to a certain extent, closer to continents, even tides. But deep ocean currents are caused by the temperature differential between the water at the equator and the water at the poles. And we talked about how that heat transfer all throughout the oceans, it actually distributes heat all over the planet and makes it habitable. Without ocean currents and convections, we wouldn't be able to live on Earth. It would not be habitable. It explains why Paris, France, for instance, and Montreal, Canada are at pretty close to the same latitude, but winters in Paris are really mild and nice, and winters in Montreal are brutal. They're really cold. And that's because that warm Gulf Stream that hits the southeastern United States crosses the Atlantic Ocean and then goes across like the western edge of Europe, which heats up that part of Europe, like Paris, while at the same time, cold polar water is dropping down from the Arctic Circle and traveling along the east coast of North America, which is where Montreal is. So cold water, colder climate, warm water, warm climate. So we worked on warm-ups. Everybody did their warm-up homework. We did a really cool demo of convection where we used a convection container, a demonstration container. We pulled out the center partition and allowed hot water and cold, really hot water and really cold water to combine. And it became very clear that temperature difference and how the colder water was more dense because it just stayed on the bottom. It stayed on the bottom for a long time. If you missed that, there's a video of that demonstration on the agenda a couple of days ago. The other really cool thing we did was we asked you guys to open up and copy the Jamboard assignment, which is just another fun way to interact with the materials. So, we try to keep you guys engaged. But we gave you a data table of ocean currents, told you where they were and numbered them so you could easily find them, and told you if they were hot or cold, and then asked you to color them in red or blue, and then to color in the equator orange. So now you have a really nice graphic representation of those ocean currents. And then we asked you to answer like 3 questions. No need to submit that. Please don't share it with us. Please, it's not even for submitting, but we did ask you to have it ready to discuss at the beginning of class so that we could like jump back in and be productive. So that's where we are for class on Monday and Tuesday. So happy to see all of you guys. If you have any questions about any of this, just see your science teacher. Hope this gets you where you need to be.